Oh, hello, and welcome to Transporter Room 3. This week we are discussing Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episodes 15 and 16. Some emotions in these ones, but before we get into that, I am Natalie, also known as Dark Aardvark. You can find me on Twitter at Dark_Aardvark. It is the best place to keep up with me and everything that I do. You can see me tomorrow night along with Robin on Once Upon a Leap on the Lady Saito's channel. And we are all gathered here today to talk about Star Trek. Well, we're gathered here today to talk about Star Trek because I watched a cartoon, The Lower Decks. And loved it and wanted to know all the inside jokes. All the inside jokes must belong to me. So I'm going through and watching all the Star Trek now, and we are discussing it. But I am joined by Robin and Hope. Do one of you want to volunteer to do your spiel next? We got Robin. Alrighty.
My name is Robin. You can find me at Twitter at KaikaC, and I have come not to talk about Star Trek, but to bury him. Nay! No.
It's too classy for me. I don't get it.
You can find me, as Natalie mentioned, on Midnight Cinema's channel tomorrow night, and you can find me there on Thursday night as well, on Azure Kingdom, which is a campaign being run by Anna Tony on her channel. I watched Star Trek as a kid, The Next Generation, with my parents when it was airing live periodically, but I did not watch the whole thing, all of it, until about a year and a half ago when I watched it all with my roommate. And I decided to join Natalie on her watching voyage because it is very entertaining, although I feel like this week is going to be less entertaining than sad and... I don't know, commiserating.
Yeah. That seems accurate.
And I also promised that I only usually try like one goofy intro thing a week. So
okay, so we're safe tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, it's out of the way.
I think it was a good intro. Thank you, Robin. Hope, same to you, if you please.
Yes, I'm Hope Tracy. You can find me on the Lady Saito's channel as well, but on Monday nights. And currently on Friday nights for 2 more weeks for some D&D shenanigans where I play the most obnoxious character that I can manage with a straight face. That is, I mean, not smiling, not straight.
My face is never straight.
No. Anyway, so I have a very similar experience to Robin with Star Trek as a child, where I watched it with my family because it was on television. So I haven't watched all of it, but I have a pretty good sense of what it is and who the characters are and what is coming up in future seasons.
Ominous.
Very exciting things. I was even part of the Star Trek fan club for one meeting when I was 16. It's good. It's good stuff.
Good times, yes. I will say that I usually have a galaxy behind me, and you're just seeing the green screen because tonight I was like, oh, this looks like a fun top to wear, and then like 3 minutes before I sent the Zoom link out to these two, I realized it's green, and I sit in front of a green screen. So, enjoy the green, I guess.
It's lovely.
Thank you.
Green's an okay color.
We're bringing spring thoughts to the show. A little bit of levity before we get into the dark, although there's some, anyway.
I mean, this one, 3:15.
Yeah.
Yesterday's Enterprise certainly begins with.
It begins. I love the start of this, actually. Yes, with Worf and Guinan in the cold open.
Yes.
Which is fun to see the two of them together, because they've interacted, I'm sure, but like this is the first time I've ever really been cognizant of them. Just like it's just the two of them just having a conversation.
And the prune juice becomes a meme about Klingons.
Does it? Oh, good.
Yes. Not in the show necessarily, but culturally.
Culturally
became
okay.
a thing. Yeah.
That's because prune juice is a warrior's drink.
The warrior's
so.
drink. Well, the thing that I love is that, at least to me, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like Guinan gives it to Worf fully expecting Worf to have that response. Like, she knows that he's gonna be like, this is the drink of champions.
That makes I mean, it's Guinan.
Yeah.
So if anybody's gonna know,
She knows a lot of things apparently.
she does for sure. Especially in this episode.
I know it's been said before in Star Trek commentary, but I am just so glad that Picard just believes her.
Yes, for sure.
Yep.
Before we dive into that, I do want to point out that Guinan has a running list in her head of the crew on the Enterprise that could handle Worf sexually.
Yep.
And I don't want us to sleep on that fact. Okay.
But no, that's a very important fact to bring up. It is.
It is.
And you'll be very interested to note who is on that list in later seasons.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna find out who's on the list. That's like the best news I've had in a
well,
while.
We'll find out at least one person who may or may not have been on Guinan's list.
I'm intrigued. I'm looking.
Robin knows what I'm talking about.
So, what does Guinan what does Picard believe about Guinan this time? And it's that something's wrong on the ship. So there's what is it? Do they use the word temporal anomaly? I think they do. But there's a big old hole in space-time, and what comes through but an Enterprise. And I was, as the tweet thread indicates, super confused for a minute as to what was going on. Because and I don't feel it's entirely my fault. I am not always the quickest at putting together things, but go ahead,
I will
Robin.
be honest. I mean, I've seen this episode before, so, and even having seen it, I remembered it slightly wrong. Like, I had forgotten that. Like, I thought when we switched to the silver belted crew that they were the Enterprise C, and I thought we were going to have like a 2 crew situation.
That's what I was thinking too.
And then I was like, oh wait, no, that's not how that's not what happens in this one.
Yeah.
It's a completely different crew.
I think the confusion that you experienced was actually a testament to how well they did with the slight sense of, like, with the changeover. Like, it was a really good job. Like, there was a very swift, blurry moment, and then different people were on the bridge.
Oh, for
acting
sure.
a little different.
Yeah,
and
the bridge was different too.
Yeah.
And they had right, because I think it's as soon as it happens, that's when you get Picard right saying military log as opposed to
Captain's log. Yeah, and I found it interesting too, the relationship between this alternate universe Riker and Picard. I mean, obviously we only saw it for less than one episode worth, but it seemed much colder.
Yes.
Than
almost competitive.
Yeah, which was interesting, and like it made sense to me, especially once I started figuring out what was going on. Like, I think all of the actors actually that we're used to seeing in regularly in the episodes did an excellent job of their performance. Feels grounded in that character, but like that character has had some very different life experiences.
It's weird too. Like, I definitely noticed that Yara appeared, but I didn't notice that Worf was gone. That's how seamless it was.
Yeah.
Until the end, and I'm like, oh, Worf's back.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and another thing I was sort of wondering with Wesley is whether Wesley was like, as opposed to being like an acting ensign who was gaining experience before going to Starfleet Academy, if he had already graduated from Starfleet Academy, it seemed
probably
like
early recruitment.
It seemed like they were probably
talking
them out
about how like
earlier.
half of the Starfleet had been decimated in the war, and the startling to me at the end, like toward the end of the episode, kind of hesitate to use that because we knew it was gonna not be a going forward thing, but was Picard saying about how they were things are going worse than what the general Starfleet knew? It was like they were anticipating like having to surrender in 6 months at this point in time, which I think it was surprising to me insofar as just how, like, you would assume that Starfleet was going to prevail in this war, even though it was going for 20 years.
75 years of war.
Yeah. Was it 70? I thought it was 20 specifically with the Klingons, I thought.
Well, they didn't end it then, but they'd been fighting it since
okay.
the original series.
Yeah, at least a Cold
War
going on for 75.
Yeah.
With hot, with points at which
Sure.
it heated up. But yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That was supposed to be the big surprising thing in Next Generation, was that they were
That
at peace with
makes
the
sense.
Klingons and there was a new
Yeah.
enemy.
Which I did pick up from the beginning too, because of the interactions with Worf and how it was.
But that seems like a sensible crux for, like, yes, this is about the amount of time it's going to take us to lose.
For sure.
And of course, I don't know. I feel like, especially, I don't know about as much as sci-fi, but right in comic books, like, this is the classic fun thing you get to do, where you get to have your heroes about to lose, but then you set it up in a way where, like, it doesn't happen because the whole thing just gets erased.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or if it does,
it felt very, like, in that sense, very comic booky, very which one was the Days from Future Past? Is that the second in the kind of new X-Men one? I think that was that one.
I'm not. Yeah.
Anyway.
Red Dwarf did one too, with a white hole. It's viewing time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like the seamless switching over, so much so that even though I had seen it not that long ago, I was still temporarily confused.
Yeah. Well, I feel even less worse about being thrown off a bit. I
agree with you, Natalie. I do like the older uniforms better. But
Yes.
I would say that the lighting was weird in this. Like, I know it was supposed to look like a different ship, so they lit everything. But everyone's boobs didn't look right. Like, I don't normally notice their boobs, but I was noticing them because the lighting was weird and they looked awkward.
It was much darker on the wartime Enterprise, yeah.
But the angles of the lighting were just hitting everyone's chest in a really unflattering way, regardless of the uniform. It was very weird.
I did not notice, but maybe I'll fire it up and scrub through a little bit to see.
And I feel weird about saying that, but it's true.
Yes, it is what it is. I'm interested. I don't doubt you. I'm interested. I didn't pick up on it. That's why I'm interested in.
Apparently, they did get a budget increase for this episode.
That makes sense.
So they were probably playing around with all kinds of things.
Because there was new costumes.
All kinds of boob effects.
I know, right?
We added 30% more boob shadow to this episode with the budget.
Yeah, pretty much.
I do like, there's a moment, because I'm still, like, I understand in various ways, like, how the teleporting thing works, transporting thing works. But I did like to see that Dr. C put her hand on the target.
Yes.
Yeah, when she said 2 to beam up, and, like, put her hand, like, it was like, that makes sense. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
communication. What's that?
Yeah. Realizing that they had to send these people back to die.
Yeah, one thing that also makes me, I guess I didn't really look into it. I don't think so, but I would have loved somehow to, like, not necessarily this episode, well, for obvious reasons, but like somewhere in the Star Trek universe, I would not have minded seeing more of Captain Garrett. I kind of like.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I really liked. It would. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't have worked out because of the 20-year time difference. But I was picking up on some smolderingness in the interaction between her and Dr. Crusher a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Not gonna disagree.
And that could have been fun to explore.
I think they really tried to make Janeway a lot like Garrett, and then she turned into her own character.
Yeah, but that seems very, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, they even sort of sound like their voices sound not dissimilar to me, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had told me like that's Janeway, I would have been like, oh, well, she sounds a little different, but I would have probably believed you. if you told me that was, you know, Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah. I think it was a good experiment in characters that they could riff off of. Very successful.
I also love the scene in private with Picard and Guinan. You wouldn't be able to get that. I don't want to say like. I'm just spiritual, I guess. For like, it's not spirit. It's like trusting a trusted friend, but it's like the most. I don't know how to describe it, but you couldn't. I don't feel like you could have that scene with Picard and Guinan if there had been anybody else in the room.
Mm-hmm.
With the two of them, so that because Picard would have to. He let down a lot of his. Not Picard, all of his captain barriers were down in that moment, and we wouldn't have been able to have that with any of the.
Was it just me also? And I think about it just because in this scene in particular, like I feel like he drifts into it even more, and maybe it was a conscious attempt to, you know, differentiate this timeline Picard from, you know, the normal timeline Picard. But I feel like he was much more brogy. Like I feel like.
No, he definitely.
There was much more of a Scottish brogue that came out, and so especially I feel like his interactions with Guinan in particular, I feel like where he just seemed to be much more like raw, I guess.
Yeah, more. Like not the more proper, like not Shakespearean because he doesn't talk like but you know that. Yeah, for sure.
Added a little extra command resonance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which makes sense because he's still a captain that cares about his crew, but it's a wartime where there's heavy casualties and things. So so
he's more shouty.
Yeah,
but I think brogy is a good term for all of that.
Is.
Definitely.
And one thing we haven't brought up yet, we mentioned it briefly, but we haven't really touched on that we should, is Yar. Appearing in this episode again. I was warned, isn't the right word. Given the heads up, I guess. That she's
you, Robin, because it wasn't me.
I mean, not warned. It's like, you know, foretold.
Yeah, heads up.
Heads up. 7'd up about it. I would really like to know what. It's Denise Crosby, right? I think that plays Yar. I really would like to know what her thoughts were on like coming back and how, like being on that set again. I would be interested.
I'm guessing I mean, because Denise Crosby, like my understanding, and I haven't looked that deep into it, but like I mean, she really I think she's a Star Trek fan. Like
she came back, so obviously it wasn't like.
Yeah, well, but I mean, like, you know, like in addition to just being on it, like she likes Star Trek. Like I feel like didn't she? Because she did like that documentary, right, about Star Trek fandom. I think at some point I feel like she did. So like I have a feeling that she wanted probably to come back, and especially if it was going to mean that Yar got
a death of
a meaningful death.
Yeah, a heroic send off as opposed to. But
I think
it would be really fascinating to read more on it. I guess
and not that I'm
probably out there somewhere.
I would think so. Yeah, especially if she's been doing documentaries and stuff. I can't imagine it hasn't been asked in something if she's talking Trek stuff. But I think they handle it like if we had to have the original kind of bullshit death for Yar, then I think this was. I can't imagine kind of a better way to give her a second chance at a good goodbye.
Especially with Guinan laying out what had gone wrong before and what this new death actually meant. Like they weren't going to let anybody miss that, and I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, it's like the button up too. The button at the end too, where Guinan is sitting with I want to say Geordie, and says, "So tell me about Tasha Yar." Like, oh, I almost started tearing up just thinking about it because it's just like I don't know.
Oh, and uh the the awkwardness that wasn't intimate between her and Data. Like I felt like the lift scene really like kind of pointed out that they hadn't done what they had done in
Oh,
the
is
other
that what you were?
Yeah.
I was wondering. I asked my roommate, I'm like, so do you think they did it in this?
No, I don't
I mean,
think
they
they
wouldn't
did.
have had
I
that
think that's what it
adventure,
was
yeah.
indicating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't have had that mission where they was everything was like the second episode of the series too, where it was
Yes.
like
So they
All
didn't. They were
all
still
your
close
favorite
enough
characters
to
acting different that you.
say
Yeah.
personal questions.
Yeah, but I mean, she's just her bringing her back was so well used. It didn't feel like fan service or some sort of weird internal Hollywood politics or something, which I don't think it was necessarily either one of those.
I think if it was weird
Things.
internal Hollywood politics, it wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I love there's so much pretending we take damage in this episode, and there's the console explodes and like the dude like jumps and goes flying, and I'm just I love it so much. It makes me
Riker
so
dies.
happy.
Yes, with a little
Oh,
spiky
yeah,
thing
Riker
in his
dies.
forehead. No, he gets his throat slashed. She gets the spiky thing in her
Yeah.
Yeah,
forehead.
she gets the spiky thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that confused me when the captain of the other ship, because she just seems to like roll out of the chair, and then they're like she's dead, and like, oh, they did her dirty like Yar, but then she had like the shrapnel.
Well,
or
they
whatever
had to do
sticking
that
out
so
of
the
it.
other guy could be captain.
Oh yeah. The other guy that they had very awkward cis het normative. Like, I'm sorry, their kiss in the transporter room. I was like, please, no, this is bullshit. Like, not that Yar's kissing a boy. She can kiss whoever she wants, and she's already had her coin operated boy. The
Wow.
original one.
Wow.
It was more of an
We're
Amanda
stealing
Palmer
ourselves against the
reference.
next episode. We
I was
have
gonna
to.
say,
We need some distance from
tweeting
him.
out. Natalie calls.
You know we do not accept data slander in this.
But he hurts us so badly.
And we also
Yeah,
get Riker going down, and then Picard hops over the railing, which
Yes, that's
I
his
love
big
it.
action moment.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, when he hops over and he starts shooting
Firing.
away at
The
Klingon
techno,
ships.
yeah. It was so fun.
I mean, I didn't mind it. I think just because it's the Yar Castillo, that's his name, right? Yeah, Castillo. Just because it's such a trope, I'm like, of course they have this. But like, I feel like it's one of those things that the more I think about it, the more it irritates me, just because I feel like it kind of undercut.
It undercut her story, and for sure.
Yeah, and
Well, she didn't have any other compelling reason to be on that ship until somebody told her that she was supposed to be dead anyway. But before that, it was like, oh, I want to help you because I'm personally invested in you. They could have come up with something else, though.
Yeah, they could have come up with something
And
else. I think they had a perfectly good reason, which was that
they don't have any tactic.
They don't have any. It's not. Yeah, and whoever they had a tactical was probably not as good as her, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, as I said,
played at that.
It was a. I mean, I feel like they didn't.
It's one of those.
It was pretty brief, so I feel like it's
Yeah.
not like it took up a ton of time, at least.
Well, it's one of those things too, where if they would have had 2 or 3 episodes, I wouldn't. It could have made more sense and not just been tropey, and worked better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this episode. Like I'm like Yar. I mean, she had a speech that made me tear up when she was talking to Picard about like needing to transfer over to the other ship. Was awesome. Like that's we should have had a speech like that from her the first time around, but then we wouldn't have gotten this lovely episode, I think, for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
I mean,
I-
I will say this episode is like.
And this episode, we got a twofer of new ships. It's the same
True.
ship with different lighting. Like, we
Yeah.
got 2 of them.
That's true.
I will say this episode, it definitely has my, like, super fall for the trope of the heroic, unwinnable.
Oh, absolutely.
Stand.
Yeah,
and this one had two of them essentially in it, and it was like, that is my bread and butter.
Yep.
Where you have both the Enterprise D, clearly if they had not, was clearly gonna.
Be destroyed utterly by the Klingons.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm totally on board. Like I like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the 120 crew members all like nobody had to fight or like have be forced on the ship. They all like I'm a sucker for that stuff too. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And of course, I liked the opening. Like it's funny. The opening is very goofy, but it is also a really fun foreshadowing because it is.
Yeah.
Klingons. This is going to be an episode about
Fighting
honor and sacrifice, even if it's not going to be about Worf. It's still going to be very much a Klingon themed episode in that sense, which was a fun.
I thought that okay, so like this is rather personal and not in like a sexy fun way. Sorry,
It's okay.
but one of the things that I really obsess about with death is like the data loss, like when everything that's in their brain just goes, like all their perceptions and everything that forms all the things they can't communicate for lack of time or someone to communicate them with, or just like simple ability to get all of that back out. So when they send Yar back, they can send her because they say they can't send technology back with them to help them. It will be discovered. It'll cause some sort of anomaly, but they can send a person. And to me, that speaks more about what is lost when Yar dies, because they can send that data and that ability to analyze because it's organic and just
Sure.
it's not telltale.
It's not going to look any different or be able to be reverse engineered by.
Yeah, you can't pick apart what's in somebody's brain after they die. It deteriorates.
Yeah. That's a very excellent point, and I think
Probably not intended.
Probably not intended, but that's okay.
Interesting point. I'm going to try and write it down and remember, because as Hope knows, there's a slight coda to this whole thing that we will not see for several seasons, I think.
Does it involve the Borg?
It does not involve the Borg.
Someday I'll be ready.
But Hope bringing that up about sending, like there's not the same risk in sending back a person does raise a question that I hadn't really thought about, that seems problematic.
There was a lot of argument about sending a device. Like, can't we just upgrade their weapons or give them something?
Oh yeah, no, but it's more has to do with Yar in particular.
Oh yeah, okay.
Interesting. All right.
Ooh.
Well,
I'm not actually aware of this, and I'm looking forward to discovering it.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to the Offspring?
I don't know. Are we ready?
I mean, we're never going to be ready, but are we prepared as much as we can to talk about the Offspring?
Them trying to steal Data's baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodness. Oops, sorry.
We got that out of the way.
Yeah. I assumed Data was having a son, although in my defense, it was largely because the creature was naked, and holy shit.
So going
the
back
android
to my
life form.
I mentioned before we went live that for various reasons, which will become clear at the beginning of March, I've been thinking a lot about 80s related content. and I hadn't really thought about it the first time I watched this episode, but the second time watching it through, there were so many 80s tropes in this about aliens or mythical beings or whatever, and like big government coming in to take them away to do experiments.
Yes, I was thinking
and
that too.
and
Firestarter.
the well, and what I was thinking about right now with Natalie's comment is, and this is the splash moment.
Oh yeah.
Was that the female presenting nipples?
Yeah, just the naked,
Yeah, the
android
naked.
wandering around,
Yeah.
kind of like what's her face.
Yep, Carol Hannah.
For sure.
Sorry.
That's fine.
My memories of Splash are in the same universe as Batteries Not Included.
That's a mashup.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they happen in the same universe, but Batteries Not Included is a better story.
All right.
I will fight anybody over that with my fists.
This has been Batteries Not Included corner.
Yeah. I mean, last week we had a little psych section, so
I still have to catch up on that. I will.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
you're
should not derail the tone, but I felt like maybe adding a few
self-defense.
It is self-defense. I do disagree partially disagree with Troy in this one where she says, I'm paraphrasing a touch, but you can choose your own gender, but she says, but it's your gender for life. And I agree with the first half of that. You can choose your gender.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose your gender at any point in your life.
And
it can change.
And they're an artificial being. They can literally change their skin whenever they want to. Why would you say that to an android?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say there are two things that one, like it's funny when you actually see a moment where you're like, if they did this episode now, they would use they as opposed to it, which
to Wesley's credit, he did use they.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
I feel
also made me realize that
other people did
assuming
not.
gender. Other people did not. No.
But it is kind of like interesting when you actually get like, no, I'm like 100% sure that if they like redid this episode, they would know to use they and not.
Well, and they wouldn't be saying that gender neutral is inadequate or inappropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have said that. And it's funny too because the novelization, even for the original series, was much more broad-minded about gender than this episode is.
Well, I will say that one thing I mean, and it wasn't perfect, but I mean, I did like, in contrast to Troy's comment, I did like that Data was kind of like, no, I'm not going to decide, that.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, like that I liked. I was like.
And I mean, Troy's message for 1990 wasn't bad. It's just looking at it through.
Yeah.
2022 vision.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was there's definitely kind of a lot of cringy.
Yeah, once we got past the gender stuff and she was just established as herself, the episode accelerated rapidly away from that point and into the danger zone.
Danger zone.
Of all of us being very sad,
yes,
and afraid, and angry.
But we did get to see Data be an excellent father, which is
very
not
good.
Surprising in the least.
My tears started when they were holding hands.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. And when he adjusts so that their hands are clasping each other's instead of. Ugh.
I know.
Oh, goodness.
Really, the actress really did a great job.
She did a fantastic job of.
Wow.
Like she even had a good little like walk, which is for a bipedal being that's skips the crawling steps.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the moment that I don't know, I feel like the moment weirdly that got me the most probably was the school.
Oh, the school was
When
and
Data's
they
talking to
showed
the
her
teacher.
like in the
Yeah,
corner. Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
and
yeah,
Data's talking to the teacher, and we're
Oh,
like, we thought this would work better, but it it
yeah,
hasn't. And I'm like, oh,
I think
oh,
every one of us
lol.
has been in that situation.
Yeah.
Yep,
for sure.
it's hard.
A moment of levity
Yeah.
happens around this time in the episode. It might have been a little before this, but when Dr. Crusher pages her son on the public intercom system to remind him about his haircut. Oh man. I
It was,
cringed for Wesley.
yeah, it was. I feel like it was some of the better like nuanced acting
For sure.
from
Yeah.
Will Wheaton, because
Yeah.
like I feel like she contacts him right on the comm, and like he kind of has this air of like, oh god, this is going to be something embarrassing even before she says it. Like he's like, this can't be good.
This is not going to be good. Oh goodness. Oh, something.
I at first I didn't like the laboratory scenario where she returned to that to be continue to be rebuilt. Like it just didn't like there was something off about it to me, but then I kind of grew into it like, oh, this makes sense. Like she spent more time in their quarters as well, but like initially it was all just her standing there being poked at by people and it was like this is weird.
Yeah, I mean it was.
It almost
There was
feels like when the Admiral started threatening things, that's when she started spending less time there and
Yeah.
becoming more integrated into like family. So you could see what family she was going to be losing.
I agree.
Yeah, she walked into the, I can't remember what it was, but there was kind of like the bay or whatever, and it felt very Small Wonder.
It did have that, yeah, that sort of vibe to it for sure. I a little distracted. Thank you for the sub, the Maharishi. That's why it was related distractedness.
Yeah, we hate the Admiral. He's a terrible person, and
Yes,
we actually know his motivations because we have seen this 80s trope over and over.
and he
You
Extraordinary
does
child, we
not,
must steal
yeah,
them.
and he
you
does not
hate
hide
the
them at
Admiral.
all.
Send a sub to Natalie.
Yes. I revived my knee-jerk overreaction of Space Him in
Yes.
this episode
Yes.
because I wanted to space him so bad.
Oh, he clearly did not consider Data or Lal a person.
No.
He just
No.
pretended to.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
like, and why couldn't they just take the plans from Data? Make
Right?
their own.
He
Why
had
did
all
they
the
have to take
data.
the one Data
Data
built?
had the
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
He had been running the
But they
experiment
had to have the one
properly.
he made.
Yeah.
Why?
this reminds me. Sorry, this is going back a little bit, but I feel like it's something I really liked. It's when it's the first time that Data and Picard are talking, and Picard is like chewing Data out a little bit about doing this without asking him. But then there's the one moment where Data's like, well, I'll just deactivate, but Picard's like, you can't just activate and deactivate a life form. Where like I just in contrast, talking about the Admirals, what made me think of, like, in contrast, that Picard like instantly recognizes Lal as like a sentient being that you can't just treat like a device.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because he's one of the people that, as he brings up, that helped write the whatever. Like, I can't remember exactly how he phrases it, but
Yeah, that helps write that androids have rights. I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, like, it's always good. It's nice to see when somebody's able to extend that logic beyond just like, Data, whom he had served with over time, and so like had a personal connection to Lal, whom he didn't really have any personal connection to, but still was able to like make that
right. And
that leap.
I also love that he was upset with Data for doing this without telling anybody, and wasn't necessarily on board with it happening, but he still recognized how important it was to Data and what the situation was, and defended it fully to the Admiral without like undercutting or doing any like stage whisper like Maddie did it too, but
Yeah.
and it speaks to Picard's character, which happens a lot.
And you got to
we
see
like
shirtless
Picard.
Picard while he was doing it.
I love
That's true, they did.
love Picard in a robe so much.
And the way it was like purposely parted with his arm up, it was
Yeah.
clearly a thirst trap. Like, here you
Yeah.
go. We're doing
Yeah.
all this family, wholesome, cry your eyes out stuff. Here's
I know you
some
want a bit of
chest
English
hair.
meat, so here it is.
Yeah.
Your English beefcake. Like, yes, but I love like he answers the call from the Admiral. Like doesn't make any effort to like pull his robe close. No, he's just like just standing there proudly in his robe. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's just like the trope from like like the Family Guy jokes or whatever, like Picard in like a little shorty robe. We didn't see the bottom of it this time, but I always just assume he's in like a little, like it just barely goes down past his butt cheeks. Like,
Yeah, that's just true.
yeah.
It's climate controlled in there.
Yeah.
If you're wearing clothing, it's because you like the feel of it on your skin.
True. Oh goodness. I do like. I think
They leave you
Lal-
wondering in the encounter with Troy and Lal if Troy felt something from her.
It seemed like she
It
did.
seemed like she did, but yeah, it was.
But usually she telegraphs a lot more.
For sure. And Lal was developing emotions too at the time.
Oh, that emotional bit was super scary.
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid when she was afraid.
Yeah, like I don't know what I was afraid of, but I was afraid of it like I could have envisioned her like, not that it would have killed her, so it doesn't make any sense, but like it
did,
spaced
but, yeah.
herself. Well, yeah, I don't think anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was yeah.
They had to
it
get rid
was-
of the character because they weren't going to continue with her
For sure.
throughout the series. That's what killed her.
Well, yes. Death by instead of plot armor, it's a fatal plot disease.
Yes.
Plot vulnerability.
Yeah. But I was
She's too
worried
interesting.
about what
Kill her.
she was gonna do. Like if she, I don't know. Like I don't know what, because again, like spacing herself wouldn't have done anything. They just would have had to thaw her
Go get
out.
her.
Well, and I wonder if, and I guess I don't know enough about what was around at the time, but I wonder if one of the tropes they were trying to suggest or make you wonder if she was like going to go into like homicidal android mode or something like that. Like if they were trying to play off of that.
Yeah, I think something like her
Idea.
fighting like a contingent of security that was coming to take her off of the ship.
Yeah, like if that was
a
like they were,
fear.
not that like I thought that was going to happen, but if like at the time when this episode aired, like they were trying to like think, is she
Yeah.
is she going to become a Terminator bot? You
Yeah.
know?
That's a good point.
Honestly, I would rather she had died as she did than to have her taken away quietly and never.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I could not bear it. I'd stop watching.
Totally on board with that thought process, because that's one of the horrifying scenarios of like where and when they're in the meeting, I thought they were gonna I thought the Admiral was going to like convince Data that it'd be better if he pretended that he was okay with it, and that
No.
Whew.
No.
Yeah, no, thank you.
This is a little too close to home for me. Please
Yeah.
don't. You know?
Goodness.
But also I like one thing I like, or I thought was interesting, was like the various ways they tried to, like the crew and Picard and Data, of course, but other people involved too, like tried to find a way for Lal to like grow, in terms of her understanding of peopleanity.
Yeah.
Without like
peopleossitude.
like where they were like, okay, school didn't work, so let's try having her work with Guinan, like like maybe that'll be a better fit for her, where she can like be around people and and interact with
Everyone's
them.
doing a great job too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and I
And
mean,
when
I really liked that they were like willing to be like, let's try, experiment with like other ways of doing this. That I thought was, I don't know, I appreciated just
I
the
did too.
flexibility in thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like
I really like. I mean, and the best part about her working in 10 Forward was when Riker comes in. And she just grabs him by the shirt collar and drags him over the bar and gives him a kiss. And of course, Data's like right there. Like, what are your intentions with my daughter?
with my daughter.
The only problem I do have with that scene is that there's no way. It's been long enough. There's no way Riker would not be aware of.
Oh no! Right before he comes into the scene, you get the announcement that his shuttle has just arrived back.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
all right.
it seems to be the whole reason, because they mentioned it at the very beginning of the episode, and it seems to be the whole reason he's gone is so they can set up that scene.
Yep.
And you know what? In that case, objection withdrawn, and just respect for setting it up from the jump. I did not catch that.
I only latched onto it because I'm just like, what was he doing away?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean, like you might think though, like that Picard would have informed him.
So yeah, they have deep space communication. I would think that he could have sent something to the shuttle. Yeah, but still.
But I do like the idea that the writers are like, let's have Riker off the ship so we can just do this one gag later on. Is
I know, yeah, I respect that. I go way too far for jokes sometimes, so I can respect laying in that groundwork for it.
He was so awkward too.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
The eyes wide as he's grabbed. Like, oh no.
That human is biting that female's face.
Oh yes, that one. He's biting that female's face. No, that just. Oh man, it takes me back to like
some things your father is just gonna have to explain. To
you.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't change where Data is for anything, but it did bring back a little bit of that delightful like first season, especially early first season like Data stuff, which was a lot of fun.
I mean, I did like that. I mean, it was. In that sense, like I feel like this episode was a really clever way to show how Data has changed since the first season.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like, I don't know, doing a clip show or something, like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's always the end of the season, right?
Oh gosh.
So disconcerting because I can't get over how young he looked in that other clip show.
Yeah.
Like with the first season, and then like, wow, they changed so much.
And now he's a father.
I know. Oh my god, that last scene. Oh. I feel like
that reminds me. This is going back to last week, so I apologize. But it was something that I really loved about the Q episode, where Q is like, I don't like the beard. It makes you so much more solemn. To Riker.
That is very good. I do love in this episode when Picard's making his stand. I'm probably gonna point out like every major speech Picard has as why I love him, because it's why I love him. Like, the speeches. I mean, partially why I love him. But like just his nod and smile when the Admiral's like, "You're risking your career for this," and he's like, "No shit, dumbass." But in his, mature Picard, cultured way, and delivers a line about how there comes a time where good men cannot follow orders without question.
And this isn't even one of those like, oh, I'm sending someone to die, that it usually is. It's almost breaking the trope where it's actually this is about one of my crew members' families. It's something you wouldn't normally see in a I'm disobeying orders military situation.
Exactly. Yeah, that adds an extra nice spice to it for sure. The way,
and everyone is feeling more about it than Data was, because Data refuses to admit that he has feelings, even though he's totally wrong. He's lying to himself, and no one believes him.
Yeah. No, he's lying to himself, and everybody believes him.
It was hard to believe in the end of this episode.
True. Oh, and that the last shot of a crew member is they linger on Data, like just giving that like stoic, like look. Oh, right in the right in the heart, because they like, as you might have been getting at, but as you were saying, Hope, that if he re-uploaded part of her to his brain, and like her memories live inside his
feelings.
Head, then he has memories of feeling feelings. Yeah.
Especially attachment and love and grief and fear.
Yeah.
Like he gets all those now.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think my favorite speech in this episode, which has a lot of good speeches, I think actually is Data's to Lol about like why he tries to feel emotions. I think was probably my favorite. I really liked that speech about the struggle to.
And it seemed like a very nice continuation of that episode with Q, where they were having the like a further explanation of that part of Data.
One of the things that is difficult for me about this episode, just gonna bring it right back to autism because it's about Data. Is there's almost that they're saying it's because she's superior that they have to take her away, but there's always that you can't be a good parent because you're different, that people with mental health type disabilities experience with their children. Like someone's always suspicious of them. They're always looking for a reason.
I mean, I would say
taking good care of their children.
That also extends to physical, I would say, disabilities too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just couldn't speak for physical disabilities. I didn't want to speak for you. But yeah, it's there. It's like, it's not supposed to be a disability. He's smarter than anyone on the ship and stronger and more physically capable, but like somehow that makes
so much so that he's put in charge oftentimes when the chain of command's followed, but he's he's third in that chain of command to be left in.
But he's not trusted to be a parent somehow.
Yeah, exactly. He can command. Oh, this is something I forgot to bring up in last episode, but they said in the two Enterprises might be different, but 6,000 troops, and that seems like a super small number to be.
Aren't there only like 15 or 1,800 on the Enterprise normally?
Really?
Yeah, I think it's something
that
like that. I think it's
small.
It's like,
I'm not sure they do a lot of boarding because most of the space battles in Star Trek are blow up the other ship.
Okay, so maybe
they might do boarding though, because they had a really big. When they were going to go fix it, it was one of the. Oh, this was something from the last episode. They almost never talk about teams dispersing to recover things. They're almost always like our away party comes and they fix something and it's like 5 people. But here in this episode with these writers, they were really clear that it was like 100 people going through the ship repairing things.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, but you would if you had 6,000 people, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like 1,500 sounds so small for how big those ships are. Anyway.
You need room for all those holodecks.
That's true. All the holiday and all the whatever the replicator, whatever matter the replicator.
But yeah, no, that was a really good point though, Hope, what you were saying earlier. I hadn't really put those two things together, but yeah, like that feeling of we're telling you you're better, but you're also like not appropriate to be in a sense.
Yeah, everybody knew the Tracys are too smart for their own good, and that is a problem. Like that's a part of my family history in the small town I grew up in. You know, like.
And also, in this specific situation, too, like, who better to raise an android than the only other android? Like,
they were just making excuses. They didn't want to build their own.
Yeah. The admiral was Admiral asshole.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
Bad person. And they made a point of talking about how he's a father and should know better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then he's like he has the line where like, well, you're not a father, Picard, so you wouldn't know. I'm like, bitch, he understands more than you do. Like you're the one that's wrong, and you're.
I will say my roommate got really mad that he stayed in the like operating room with Data.
Yeah. Oh, and then he comes
Yeah, get
out,
the
and
fuck
he's the
out.
one that
What are you
delivers. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the one that comes out. I figured he was probably like into robotics or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I'm
that's
assuming that like he must be like a cybernetics
Yeah.
But he wasn't
expert
helping.
He wasn't
expert or
helping at
something
all.
like
And
that.
then he
Yeah.
comes out, and then he seems like he comes out and delivers the news like he was always
Yeah.
like he wasn't the asshole. And then
Like
something
his
like,
hands were moving faster than he could even see. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I think we know who did all the work while you just stood and gawked.
Yeah.
We hate him.
He and Dr. Pulaski can drown in some fucking homemade soup.
Equally dirty. Dirty. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, ableist. Yeah.
Yep.
Do we have anything else we want to say about this episode in particular, but either episode?
I will say at the end, maybe, I don't know if this is a lighter note or not, but I thought the ending of this, like, I understand the lingering on Data, but for some reason I thought the like weird exchange where Picard's like, yeah, go to your station, and he's like, set it a course for blah blah blah, and Wesley's like, okay. It was like such a weird, I don't know, I don't understand why that dialogue was there. Like it felt very off emotionally. I don't know.
I agree.
Well, they were
maybe
they were giving him a chance to pretend like that everything was normal and he wasn't affected, but it was awkward for the rest of us, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't, or like if they were trying to like hint at like, the only thing I could come up with is like they were trying to hint at like, you know, but like we have to move on or something like that. Like, but it just felt very odd. Like I was just surprised that they didn't just end on Data's, you know, when Data was talking about like her memories, I have her memories, you know, in my memories. Like I was surprised that that wasn't the last.
Yeah,
line.
I understand being surprised by that, but I think, you know, they have to kind of put a little button on it too, and I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It was it's like not like a big deal, but it was just, it just kind of was like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It seems like a real emotional register shift, and maybe that was what they were going for, because they were like, oh, we can't
devastated
end on,
us. They had to give us a rest.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, oh, and next week we'll be back to normal.
Well, speaking of being back to normal next week, we will still be abnormal next week, but we should probably close it out for this week. Look at that.
Oh, on time.
I had an excellent segue, and I kind of butchered it, but here we are.
That reminds me.
That reminds me of the time. Yes. Prune juice is the drink of warriors. Yeah, this episode is brought to you by prune juice, the drink of warriors. So we will see you next week here on Transporter Room 3, where we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, Episodes 17 and 18. I don't know what they're called, but I probably will next week. So
that's the kind of confidence we like to hear.
Yeah.
Even if they're not lighthearted and just sort of intellecty, we're going to pretend they are. We're ignoring any kind of emotional subtext because we can't handle it again.
No more subtext or straight up sadness. But we will find out next week how it goes. Until then, on behalf of @HopeTracy71 and @Kaikasi and @Dark_Aardvark, we will see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.